Hello, my name is Meriden. I'm going to be giving a short video recording of my first lesson that I turned in to the teacher. This lesson is the one about being in an Amazon jungle. Um, the instructions I'll be giving have to do with animals in the jungle itself, locations in the jungle, food that the animals eat. I know we're supposed to pretend like there are a group of students in front of me, which is really hard to do when there are not. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what I would do if there were students in front of me. Okay, so following our lesson rubric, I would first give an introduction. I'm assuming that these students have had some sort of background in what I've been teaching, so I would introduce the day's main focus by reiterating what we've learned in the past or reminding students what we've been talking about before, which if we're talking about the jungle today, then we were probably talking about the jungle last time in some sort of introductory measure. So on a whiteboard, which would be behind me or in front of me, or maybe I would have some sort of apparatus that would project an image onto a whiteboard, I would introduce the jungle. So students sitting in front of me, I would call to attention, and things that we talked about the week before or maybe the lesson before, I would reintroduce them to. So here's a leopard, here's a capybara, here is some sort of bird that lives in the Amazon, and here are the different places in the jungle where these animals live. And then I would talk shortly about the lives of these animals. So I would say something very simple like, jaguars live mostly on the ground or in the canopy of the jungle. They hunt for food, things that live on the forest floor or up in the canopy, including capybaras and some types of birds. Like we've talked about, I would have to adapt my speech. So if the vocabulary words that students are learning include capybara, jaguar, or some sort of bird in the Amazon, including canopy, forest floor, these are the words that I would emphasize. So the jaguar lives on the forest floor. He hunts capybaras, or he climbs into the canopy to hunt types of birds. So that is kind of how I would introduce the lesson. Then we have the part of the lesson where we talk about what we will actually be doing, so the activity. I think for this lesson, I hand out a worksheet that has sort of a picture of the jungle and maybe animals in the jungle, or it in the instructions talks about animals in the jungle, and students will have to match these animals or jungle parts to where these animals live or the parts of the jungle that are associated with animals and actions that we talk about. So this activity, I would give instructions such as, please match the animals and or places to adjoining animals and or places. This would be very lesson specific, I feel. Depending on what the focus of the lesson is, you could be asking, where in the jungle do animals live, or which animals live in which part of the jungle. So as long as we're clear on that, then I could give very clear instructions simplified to their level of English. The appropriateness of the activity obviously depends on the age group and also the ability of speakers. So for a young group of moderate speakers, this would be an assignment that is relatively straightforward. For another group of speakers that are less experienced, I would have to give much simpler instructions, and maybe even this lesson wouldn't be appropriate. This practice and this assignment, the students would be set into groups, and I would tell students such things as, you will be working together, you will pair up with one other person, so you will sit in groups of 2, and you will be reading the instructions on the assignment. We will be matching animals to the places in the jungle that they live. If you have any questions, please ask me, or please see the work that we have done on the board, because prior to this, as I said during the introduction, we will have talked about what we're learning today, and they will have, a good foundation for the assignment that they are now completing. So students would get together in their groups, and maybe one by one they would come and ask questions such as, where does the jaguar live? Or what kind of birds live in the canopy? Or what are vines? What are these things that hang in a canopy? And I would walk around helping each pair group individually assessing how they're doing. And this would be, kind of the practice phase after the presentation phase and the introduction phase. So for this practice, I will walk around assisting as needed, but I will not give them too much help, too little, and I'll kind of be gauging as I go along, how easy or difficult this assignment is, and which person works well with another person. So afterwards, they will, assuming they have done the work without too much difficulty, maybe it's too hard, we've had to quit, maybe it's too easy, we've had to make it a little harder, there will be an assessment or an evaluation. They will have finished this worksheet that we will then talk about at the end of class. So I will quiet down the class, saying things such as, okay, time's up. Whatever work you've done, that's okay. Just stop now. We'll see how far you got. Let's work together now to come up with the answers and correct our work. So students will stop. They don't have to move away from their pair groups, but they do have to stop. And then, so they'll be sitting, and I will direct their attention back up to the whiteboard, where I will put the worksheet that they have been working on onto the board, but blank. And then as a class, using the answers that they have found in their pair groups and all together, we will look up at the whiteboard and we will, as a class, decide what the best answers are. So as a group, we will not only discuss what they did in pair groups, we will correct their work, we will reinforce the work, and then we will do it together. So it's kind of an I do, you do, we do sort of thing. Except that at the very beginning, the I do part was more of a review than a work on the worksheet, which could be improvised on that day if I felt that maybe they needed more instruction. Okay, so after that, the assessment evaluation would be the working on the board. It's not exactly a test day, so based upon students' willingness and knowledge to interact with what I have on the board and correct the work that they've done, maybe they struggle, maybe it's easier for them, maybe I notice a few outliers in the back or somewhere in the room, people who aren't as comfortable with what we've done that day. It will give me a good idea of where the class is at and whether or not this lesson is, if we're ready to go on to the next stage or if we maybe need to spend some more time on this. Depending on the level of the group, we will probably up the ante or lower it on a grammatical scale. So assuming that this is a class of adult speakers at maybe a level 2, hopefully they've done well on the assignment, but perhaps need a little more of a challenge. So the application of these lessons is obviously very important. They need to be able to take the skills that I've taught them in this lesson elsewhere. So a lesson like this is kind of preparing them to pick up a National Geographic, be able to read a story, and then talk to other people about it, or retain some important information for themselves. Lessons like these require a lot of preparation because not only does the information have to be relevant, it has to be accurate, it has to be fact-based, right? So we're not making up any facts such as, say jaguars or leopards don't eat capybaras, then that would not go on the lesson plan. If they do, then it would. Or like if we talk about animals such as caimans, I should hope that we would also reiterate that alligators and crocodiles are not the same animal, so on and so forth. Also, hopefully it would fit into educational standards, so I know that lots of departments and lots of universities get together and talk about the things that they want to teach. This would obviously have to fit into those guidelines, and where it was lacking, we would have to improve, and where it was good, could we improve it even better? All along the way, comprehension checks will be done. Obviously, it's very important to, especially in large classes, but also small ones, make sure that people understand the instructions, make sure they're given clearly, and if people are struggling in the class, it's important to find out why, not just assume that they're at a lower level. Maybe they just see problems differently, or the way they solve problems is not like the others. So, I know that wasn't really teaching a lesson to students, but I don't really know how to do that without students present. I know I have given this lesson before, and that I have observed lessons like these, so hopefully in the future I will know how to give a lesson like this, and hopefully I will have other help to guide me. But I think lessons like these are very good. They're engaging. They seem to make students want to interact. It makes them curious about the world around them. It teaches them things they might not have thought about before. And it also gives them the confidence to move on to other study materials that they've never maybe heard about before. So if you learn one lesson about the jungle, you might be interested to learn more. That concludes my presentation on how I would present a lesson. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good night.